Failed former President Donald Trump apparently defaming E. Jean Carroll again for no reason whatsoever during a bonkers off-the-wall CNBC interview with Squawk Box and Joe Kernan yesterday. The guy just cannot help himself. We'll look at a few moments from the interview. Here is Trump unprompted as this interview winds down, just going after E. Jean Carroll. There's no reason for this. It's potentially going to be another defamation suit for Trump. He can't stop. It's like he can't control himself.
People sometimes wonder, how to prioritize, and you just keep charging.
Well, the legal issues aren't, hey, Joe, the legal issues aren't legal issues. They're Biden issues. Biden put Fannie, beautiful Fannie, who's turned out to be now a corrupt district attorney, but in my opinion, they're almost all corrupt. All of the stuff that you see is weaponized government. The DA in New York is being run by the DOJ. They put their top person into the DA's office. All of this stuff, and frankly, I get a lot of credit for it. I think I'm much more popular now because they did it. It backfired on them. They've weaponized government. Think of it. They put Colangelo, one of their top people, like the top person, into the DA's office to go get Trump. They deal with Letitia James, a real lowlife. They put people with her. They're dealing with her all the time to go get Trump. These are the Democrats. The prosecutors and judges in New York, our country could fall because of it. That's how bad it is. And companies are moving out of New York because of what they've done to me. And I'm going to end up winning on appeal. And if I didn't win on appeal on these ridiculous decisions, if I didn't win on appeal, the most ridiculous decisions, including the Miss Bergdorf Goodman, a person I never met. I have no idea who she is, except one thing. I got sued. From that point on, I said, wow, that's crazy what this is. I got charged. I was given a false accusation and had to post a $91 million bond on a false accusation. People aren't moving into New York because of the kind of crap they're pulling on me.
Right.
That is potentially the exact type of defamatory statement that he has previously made about E. Jean Carroll, for which he even had to pay that. Understand that part of the defamation here is alleging that E. Jean Carroll made up all of the claims about Trump, except Trump has already been found civilly liable for those claims. He has been found civilly liable of sexual assault, what the judge said met the characteristics of rape. And so when Trump comes out, first of all, I think he thinks that by not referring to her as E. Jean Carroll, by instead referring to her as Miss Bergdorf Goodman, it's sort of like a get out of jail free card. I doubt that courts would see it that way, and I doubt that juries would see it that way when he then talks about the exact amount of the bond relative to the case, and we know exactly what he's referring to. That's allegedly defamatory, and he's doing it again, and potentially a critical mistake here. Now, what I'm going to show you next is a different moment from this interview. This is what I call a financial knowledge abortion. Trump tries to explain how his absurd tariffs, which are actually inflationary, won't generate inflation because he'll also give the rich tax cuts, which also generates inflation. Here he explains how inflation will be way down by telling us he will put in place multiple policies that actually increase inflation. Not a financial genius, I think we can say.
Dollars came in like clockwork. Obama, Bush, everybody else, they did absolutely nothing. So,
Mr. President, I just wanted to ask you, though, you'd also talked about proposing a 10% tariff, if you will. And I wanted to ask you about that because the center-right...
Okay, prepare yourselves. I dare you to make heads or tails out of Trump's policy explanation here.
American Action Forum, which is a think tank, said that they thought the plan would, quote, distort global trade, discourage economic activity, and have broad negative consequences for the U.S. economy.
Well, they're wrong. It would distort international trade. It would bring it back to the United States. We have companies. If you look at India, you look at China, you look at so many different countries, they're smart, much smarter than our country. We were getting ready to do this, and I had it just about set.
But you don't think it would result in higher prices for American families? By some estimates, it could be the equivalent of $2,000 a family, according to The Economist.
No, I think I think taxes could be cut. I think other things could happen to more than adjust that. But I'm a big believer in tariffs for two reasons. Number one, I fully believe in them economically when you're being taken advantage of by other countries. For instance, China was taking advantage of us on the steel. They were destroying our entire steel industry, which was never doing very well over the last 25 years anyway, but, because it's been eaten alive by foreign competition. And they were dumping steel. I put a 50% tax on China steel coming in, and every person in the steel industry, when they see me, they started crying. They would hug me. They would kiss me. Sir, you saved our industry. I put a very strong 50% tariff on dumping steel, on their dump steel. And by the way, nothing was perfect. Frankly, the tariff should have been higher. I was getting ready to do that, by the way.
Mr.
But
President,
the tariff should have been higher. But
are you concerned at all that there will be retaliation?
There you go. So listen, tariffs on China, which are paid by American companies, which will cause inflation, and tax cuts for the rich, which can also cause inflation. And that's what we're supposed to believe is going to reduce inflation. It's really not making a lot of sense. And then lastly, and I think this is so critical, Trump talks about cutting entitlements. Remember, cutting entitlements is code for starting to swipe at Medicare, for starting to swipe at Social Security. Trump speaking in a code that we all understand. He says these are never things I would do, but then he says, no, entitlements we've got to look at. Here it is, his own words.
Stark policy differences, obviously, Mr. President, but one thing that I think that at least the perception is that there's not a whole lot of difference between what you think we should do with entitlements or non-discretionary spending and what President Biden is proposing. It's almost a third rail of politics. And we've got a $34 trillion total debt built up, and very little we can do in terms of cutting spending. Discretionary is not going to help. Have you changed your outlook on how to handle entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mr. President? It seems like something has to be done, or else we're going to be stuck at 120% of debt to GDP forever.
So first of all, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting, and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements.
There it is. There's a lot you can do in terms of cutting entitlements. He said it, and then he denies it, and he says it's actually Ron DeSanctimonious who wanted to do it or whatever. But when pressed, he has no problem saying, oh, no, yeah, cutting, sure, we can look at that. We've got to remember that. That needs to be used in a campaign ad because that's exactly what he plans to do, if politically convenient. Remember, he doesn't really care about any of this stuff. Whatever someone says to him 5 minutes before a mic is shoved in front of his face, if he thinks it'll help him, then he'll say it. And in this moment, it was, no, entitlements, cutting. Oh, yeah. It all sounds great. Well, let me give you a contrast to this. Joe Biden spoke about housing policy yesterday, and let's take a look at what he had to say. Breaking a deeply ingrained habit is one of the toughest things to do. Our sponsor, Fume, can make it easier. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, remove the bad from the habit. And that's, quite frankly, what Fume helps you do. Fume is an innovative, award-winning device that delivers flavored air. That's it. There's no vapor. There's no nicotine, no electronics. It's just delicious flavored air delivered by the cylindrical Fume device that fits in the palm of your hand. It comes in tasty, refillable flavors like raspberry lemon, orange vanilla, grapefruit crisp mint. The Fume device goes in your pocket. You can carry it around. It has movable parts and magnets, so if you're fidgeting or want to, it's great for that, and it's just a useful thing to break bad habits, and it provides that perfectly satisfying hand-to-mouth mechanic that many people love. Don't judge Fume until you've tried it. They have helped countless people make positive changes, and you could be next. Head over to tryfume.com and use code PACMAN to save 10% when you get the Journey Pack, which comes with the device and several flavors to try. The link is down below.